designer selection timeline. This is the current process that we're following. Questions for the RFS are due today by 5 p.m. If anyone feels that they have an issue with that, please let us know during the question and answer session. Assuming that you've already read through some of the reports and available information, as well as what we're going to go through today, hopefully answers a lot of your questions. But if you still have questions, they're due by 5. And if there's an issue with meeting that deadline, please let us know during questions and answers. Responses for the RFS are due on April 15th by 11 a.m. We are working through how best to receive those. I know that it calls for a substantial hard copy submission. We are working through possible online digital submissions, and we will get that information out as soon as we finalize that process via addendum. District is planning to have their reference checks completed by the 24th of April, get the information into the MSBA selection panel by the 28th. And right now we are targeting meeting the MSBA's designer selection panel for a short list by May 19th. We have received information back from the MSBA that they are working towards their current dates and panel dates. So as of now, we don't have a reason to change that date, but again, it's subject to change, obviously, depending on how the next few weeks go. MSBA interviews, finished up by the first week of June, and the goal would be able to have a designer on board for a kickoff meeting with the district and the town by the end of June, obviously contingent upon when folks are back at work. An overall timeline for the project in the design phase, in the feasibility schematic process, highlighted in the blue box. OPM is on board. We're currently in designer selection, again, targeting June of this year to have a designer on board. We would like to start site and existing condition information gathering and surveys this summer while the school site is available. The goal is to have the PDP, the preliminary design plans, submitted to the MSBA October of this coming fall, so that we get into the MSBA process then. The goal would then to be able to submit the preferred schematic report by March, to have that turned around in May of 21, and then submit schematic design report by August of 21, which will lead up to town meeting and ballot vote in fall, both October and possibly November of 21. These dates are aligned with the MSBA board meetings and the current time frame for town meetings. Obviously, some of them will get fine-tuned as those dates become solidified and if they change, given the current situation. The other goal is to be out complete with design by the end of 2022, with the intent of going into construction in December or at the beginning of 2023. That's the preliminary timeline. Obviously, things will change, but that's what we're working towards right now. These dates are also aligned with what's in the RFS as far as approvals by the MSBA. The dates on this timeline are when we plan to have our team, the design team, and the town actually make those submissions to meet those MSBA dates. Now I'll turn it over to Superintendent Goff to talk a little bit about what the district is thinking for the project and some of the key considerations that you should be thinking about in tailoring your response. Bridget? You might have to unmute your mic.
Yep, hold on. For some reason, it wasn't unmuting. Good morning. Before we start going into the education and architectural priorities, you'll see in the first part, looking at where it says possible consolidation. Although the MSBA invited Byrd Middle School into the feasibility study, it's also with the potential consolidation of both Byrd and Johnson Middle Schools into the 6 through 8 middle school. And due to the age of both buildings, and we also submitted an SOI for Johnson Middle School, and the MSBA enrollment, looking at 950 students, there really is the appetite for a consolidated school. We feel that it'll promote equity within the district, and really, we're concerned about the have and the have-nots of having, one new building and then leaving the other building, which is just as old, you know, for the town. It just would not be good optics. And in terms of our belief about equity for our students across the community, that consolidation is really a high priority for us. In terms of the educational and architectural priorities within this consolidated middle school, we're really looking in terms of education as an inclusive, differentiated team approach. The team approach is really center to the organizational process of these schools. You know, we have sixth grade teaming, seventh grade teaming, eighth grade teaming, actually at both middle schools. We have multiple special education programs in our school to keep as many students in district as possible. I want to say it's approximately, you know, when you look at our middle school, one middle school has 3 and the other middle school has at least 2. So we're really looking to have that inclusive special education spaces for them. We're looking at these collaborative spaces that also spaces that will also allow for some quiet and focus. But again, that collaboration, the flexible and adaptable learning spaces that's really equipped for our future. We need some room for potential growth or change, and that really the technology that's easy to change and use. We really pride ourselves in terms of enrichment, and we're looking at, you know, to keep the variety of educational opportunities for our students in terms of these enrichments. Both middle schools have very active drama programs, music, phys ed, robotics. We even have, you know, our TV studios, as makeshift as they are right now, really supporting our movement in terms of phys ed and our social emotional learning for our students. In terms of the district differentiators, in terms of, I mentioned the flexibility, but we're looking at, you know, having a centralized kitchen for the district. Right now, we have it at the high school, but we're looking to move it to the middle school level and have that centralized kitchen for the district. We're also looking to have community areas with a separate entry, possibly, so we can continue. We would like to rent our gym and our auditorium. As you know, Walpole has a very strong sports programs, but we also have very strong programs in terms of our drama, our music, and really having the auditorium and the gym. Byrd Middle School's had a cafetorium for years. This has not gone over well by students, community, and staff. I've been at Byrd. I was at Byrd since 1992. I worked at Byrd and was principal at Byrd Middle School. So I know the building pretty well, and it hasn't changed even since I was a student there. So we're really looking at that. If it's possible, have a community entrance with a separate entry. And then just outdoor and indoor transition space. Again, that open feeling, that team feeling, so we can get some project-based learning and have that collaboration effect. So just in essence, in closure, just looking at, you know, that student-centered learning, that co-teaching, and that grade level teaming, the social emotional, the technology integration, and we're also seeing an uptick of our English language learners to really help, and also to help some real world connection through our programs.
Great. Thank you, Bridget. And the last item there is just another a link that was sent out via addendum for the walkthrough of the existing building. Very well done. Got into some of the nooks and crannies of the old building to see what they're dealing with. Some of the spaces that they, as Bridget mentioned, are using for multiple functions, and then actually change throughout the day for those functions. Moving on, related to educational visioning. So as part of the RFS, all of the firms should be carrying education programming consultant as part of their basic services. However, given the timing of this project and before COVID-19 issue, the team thought it was beneficial to get a jump start on the visioning process while the staff was still available before summer. We reached out and we've contracted with David Stevens of New Vista to start working the group. He's already worked with the administrative level doing a kickoff workshop, and we do have some workshops scheduled in the spring with the staff of both Byrd and the other middle school, as well as different community members and school members, just to get a jump on that, simply because of the submission timeline that we have for the PDP is very aggressive in the fall, and we think that'd be very difficult to do all of that after the staff comes back for the new year, especially now given some of the situations that are ongoing. So we are doing some of those sessions virtually. We're going to be doing those sessions virtually until we can get in person to do them, and also give the chance for the district to start the authorship of the educational plan and meet the fall. So the design teams are offered options, whether to carry Mr. Stevens as their consultant, or if you have an in-house or prefer to use someone else, we would just ask that the briefing sessions will be held at the beginning of the design phase once a designer comes on board, and we're going to need to integrate and or transition the information that's gathered during the process that's going on now as part of the design moving forward. The goal is that the district will not be starting this process over. We will be integrating and or transitioning that information as we step forward. So that's really it as far as a presentation. I think Superintendent Goff hit on a lot of the key issues that the current school is facing and the district is facing, and some of the solutions that they're looking for. Like I said, our timeline is still intact as of today. That could change, obviously, if there are different, if the situation progresses any differently. But right now, we are staying on that timeline, and we will go from there. So I'll open it up to questions. There is a chat feature on Microsoft Teams. We will capture those questions. We will issue the questions via an addendum. Hopefully get back to everyone. So if you click on Teams, I think if you click on your name, there's a chat feature in the middle of the toolbar, excuse me, that you're able to see the conversation. So if you have any type of question, you can type that in and we'll try to answer it. If not, we will get back to you and answer via the addendum. The first question that came in is, can you expand upon what you mean by a central kitchen for the district? Bridget or Mike, would you like to talk to that?
Mike, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. So we currently have a centralized kitchen model at our high school. And we prepare all the food. The meals are done at the high school and then delivered to each of our other schools from that kitchen every day. All of our main storage for food is up there. Most of our staff are up there. It's originally just designed, the kitchen was just designed for the high school, so it doesn't have adequate space for a full district-wide operation. We are looking for a purposely designed kitchen that's built to fill the needs that we have in our district now versus using an antiquated one with antiquated equipment. So, I mean, that's basically it. Just looking for a more efficient model for prepping our kitchen and doing the delivery of food that we currently do now.
Great, thank you.
The next question is, under a consolidated school, is there a preferred site? And I would speak to that as that we're going to have to look at some site options and identify what could possibly work within the current district. There is some early speculation that the existing Bird site itself could possibly work due to the existing size of that site. But we'd have to explore several options. Patrick, I don't know if you want to say if there's actually a preferred site at this point or not. I think it's a little bit too early.
Sure, I'll weigh in a little bit. So I was just looking over, in 2013, the town had commissioned what we call the CDR McGuire report. I think that was listed as one of the source documents for firms to take a look at. In that report, it didn't necessarily specify the Bird Middle School site. I would mention, however, the Bird Middle School is centrally located close to the center of Walpole. So I think that would be ideal. However, at that site, there are, existing limitations. It's the roads that kind of surround it present traffic issues. It's centrally located in a residential neighborhood. So informally, the town has gone ahead and kind of looked at other parcels that may be able to accommodate a different middle school. However, we haven't necessarily reached any conclusions on that. So I think everything's really kind of on the table for the middle school project as of right now. So.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Any other questions out there? I got one. In the video, it was noted that middle school does not have access to baseball field. Please clarify the relationship of the field governance between the town and the middle school.
Mike, do you want me to
want to
jump
take that
in
one?
here and then maybe you could add?
So I would say that the fields that are currently on the school site are baseball field, softball field, and I believe soccer fields. Those are reserved to youth sports and to high school sports. They utilize those fields. They travel to that space to utilize them. The middle school students have a smaller dedicated area for recess when they go out each day to utilize the blacktop and space like that. So although it is one site and shared, the middle school does not really access, they're not encouraged to access those fields. I think that's what is, I think I'm answering the question that was asked.
Yeah, they, what it is, it's the baseball field and the softball field that they stay off of just because they're trying to maintain that. And that's the only one we have. But if you look at the video, our students can go out and there's that soccer field. That whole area, they're able to, you know, they're able to go ahead and play on that as well as the hard top. It's just that it just takes a lot to maintain the field. So we try to work with the town to keep the kids off of that because it's really the only field we have for our high school team.
Yeah, and I'll add that I think the gym classes utilize the soccer field to some extent, and there is access around all of the fields around the perimeter as far as jogging or running is concerned. There are some paths that are used.
Yes.
I skipped over one question about other sites being investigated, but I think Patrick had answered that. There are some parcels that are informally being looked at, but again, we'll have to go through that process as part of the design. Next question, are there any other programs other than centralized kitchen that the school cannot accommodate in their current configuration that they'd like to have in the new renovated space or new space?
Well, other than, you know, if you're looking at food service, I mean, educational programs, I mean, for me, that's, you know, at the top of my list. I mean, our EL students, you know, we've had to create, you'll see in the first floor in the center of the school, we call it the multi, you know, access learning lab. We had to partition all of that off for our English learners. We have the MECCO program. Just in order to provide some individualized instruction, we've had to move them to separate, smaller areas. Our special education population, you know, is growing, and we want to be able to keep those programs in district. And then also just our enrichment programs. When you look at that lovely cafetorium, you know, we're unable to provide even music classes because you'll have an orchestra class in there while lunch is going on, and even, you know, with the drama of what we're trying to be able to provide for our students. You know, we have if you want to call it a maker space, but right now the maker space is also the digital learning coach's office, and we used to have some orchestra lessons in there to boot. So we've used and maximized every single space as possible. So it's looking to really enhance those programs or be able to, you know, really provide those opportunities for our students.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I'll check online on the conference call. All right, we don't have any additional questions from those who called in the alternate line. Anyone else in the Teams audience that have any more questions? If not, we'll wrap up. We'll get an addendum out with the answers that were given to the questions here online. Also, if you haven't done so already, please send an email with your name saying that you attended either the Teams meeting or the conference call, so we have a list of who all attended. We will address delivery of the responses. We'll get that out in future direction. And a reminder that any other questions, if you think of them, are due today by 5, and that's emailing to Tony Pena at Compass. His contact information is in the RFS. Any last questions? Bridget or Patrick, anything you'd like to add?
I think there's one question that just came in.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We'll read through that. The current cafetorium appears to have permanent seating with dining flanking the sides, as opposed to a true space that is either one or the other. Is this the intent going forward?
That would be a big no. That is like the Achilles heel, the thorn in our side. I think every single staff member and parent and student who has walked the halls through Bird Middle School through 1961 has disliked that design. It just does not meet our needs. To have these students on either side, and then we're trying to conduct classes. Just the seating, the way things arranged. So, in a short answer is no. We'd like to see a separate cafeteria and a separate auditorium.
Great. Thank you. All right, last call. Any more questions? Okay. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. Get your questions via email if you think of them in today. The response is due on the 15th, and we will go from there. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Don't forget, just hit the red hang up button, the phone symbol on the toolbar there, and you'll hang up the call.